Thank you so much for still staying with us. You're watching Ellen 24/7, and the program is still Morning Show right here on Ellen 24/7. Well, today we're going to look at some other beautiful conversation. It's all about the cultural heritage that we have in Africa and in Nigeria. How can we sustain this, and how can we retain this cultural heritage? Well, on the 25th of March 2025, Tuesday, the headquarters of the National Commission for Museums and Monuments, NCMM, in Abuja, Nigeria, was a hub of cultural significance as Dr. OBAFEMI OlukOYA representing the Vernacular Heritage Initiative formally and over the detailed reports and architectural model of the Egbo Egbo Bassey house project, where it's been one of the talking points. Well, the milestone event was received with great enthusiasm by the Director General of NCMM. Key stakeholders were part of the conversation, and the cultural heritage experts were also part of that. And of course, our correspondent was in that event.
The Egbo Egbo Bassey House, a national monument since 1959, has been the focus of meticulous architectural documentation and research since March 2024, thanks to generous funding from GERDA HENKEL STIFTUNG. This project marks a significant step in the preservation and restoration of one of Nigeria's esteemed heritage sites. During the event, Dr. OlukOYA delivered an insightful and highly detailed presentation showcasing the architectural drawings of the Egbo Egbo Bassey house.
Which was built in 1886. So Chief Egbo Egbo Bassey was a rich, wealthy middleman during this period, and he brought this house from Glasgow to Scotland. Especially, we found the evidence of McFarlane, which is the prominent industry at the time in Glasgow, that was responsible for this kind of sort of fabrications and sending them everywhere around the world. It wasn't only limited to Calabar at the time. Right, so due to its rarity, the discussion for acquiring it started in the late 40s. Then finally, in 1959, the National Commission acquired it and it became protected according, of course, to the NCL Act.
In a moment of lightheartedness, Dr. OlukOYA handed over the extensive project report, humorously dubbing it the Bible of Egbo Egbo Bassey House, a testament to the exhaustive research and documentation that had gone into the initiative. Alongside the reports, he also presented a meticulously crafted real-life model of the monument, offering the Commission a tangible representation of the site's structure and historical essence.
Now, if we're able to also revive this video, which is the link, which is your question, one of our aims is to be able to take university students there, on excursion, for them to get to see this building and learn about the history of that particular region of Nigeria at the time. So this is why we decided that it will be a library on the one hand, which is going to contribute. It's going to have educational contribution.
He also announced that his team would be heading to the project site on March 26, 2025 to commence the next phase of restoration work, which has also been generously funded by GERDA HENKEL STIFTUNG.
So the museum definitely, we are in the process of revamping the museum ecosystem. We have 53 museums across the country. But it's important that we look at it not from a perspective of quantity but quality. Right? I think we would rather have fewer museums of a better standard than just a large amount of museums that we will struggle to maintain.
The Director General of the National Commission for Museums and Monuments, visibly impressed by the scope and dedication of the project team, extended heartfelt appreciation to Dr. OlukOYA and his team. He also lauded GERDA HENKEL STIFTUNG for their unwavering commitments to the preservation of Nigerian cultural heritage. Imabong Afia, LN247.
All right, thank you. Glad to have you back again. Well, joining us in the studio right now is Dr. OBAFEMI OLUKOYA. He's the representative of Vernacular Heritage Initiative, and he joins us on the conversation this morning. Thank you so much for being part of the program. Well, we saw what happened. We saw all the beautiful presentation, I must say, of the Egbo Egbo Bassey House project. And, many people want to ask what exactly is important about this. Can you walk us through the journey, that led to the development of this Egbo Egbo Bassey House project and the significance of these, project and the handing over? Let's have this conversation around that level.
First of all, thank you very much, Ayobami, for having me on the program. It's such an honor to be here this morning. To come to your question, yes, since March 2024,
okay,
we approached a funder by the name GERDA HENKEL STIFTUNG through our organization, Vernacular Heritage Initiative. By the way, Vernacular Heritage Initiative is an organization, non-governmental organization, that is interested in the preservation and conservation of cultural heritage in Nigeria and by extension, of course, in Africa. Right, and we're only able to do this through, of course, external internal fundings, right, from international organizations or local organizations. So we had a discussion sometimes in 2023 about some monuments in Nigeria that requires immediate attention, in fact, right? And one of the leading, let me say, the heritage sites that was on the table of our discussion back then in 2023 was the Egbo Egbo Bassey house, which is a prefabricated house there in Calabar. Of course, we will come to the detail of Egbo Egbo Bassey house much later. And then we approached the funder, international organization, GERDA HENKEL STIFTUNG, who provided us with the funding for first the architectural documentation and research of this house. It's almost impossible at the moment. In fact, if you see the structure, it's almost impossible as it is to go for restoration. We must first, as a first step, according to international standards, of course, document. Through the documentation, we know what the problems are. Then we devise our approaches for architectural conservation, right? We know the histories, we know how the building got to that point, which was what we did from March 2024, of course, finally to this March 2025.
That's about a year now.
Exactly, which eventually we handed over the reports to, of course, the Director General of the National Commission for Museums and Monuments on the 25th of March. And in the same event, of course, we also handed over the model, the architectural model of this particular house.
All right. Interesting indeed. While you were talking, I was just trying to wrap my head around, this particular project, the Egbo Egbo Bassey House project. And of course, I think it's been a national monument since 1959, right? And many people will just want to wonder, because of that year till now, what has been happening there. But can you give us, the proper significance? Why do you have to choose this to preserve the Nigerian cultural heritage?
Oh yes, like I mentioned, in 2023 we had a discussion at the headquarters of the National Commission for Museums and Monuments, and the main aim of the discussion was to foster, of course, a good relationship with non-governmental organizations on the part of the National Commission, and see how we can partner, to accelerate now the documentation on the one hand and the architectural restoration of quite a number of our national monuments, which are quite in a very bad state of conservation at the moment. Right there, one of the leading sites that we discussed was this Egbo Egbo Bassey house, which is particularly very significant because it's a prefabricated house, which was actually put together from the UK and shipped down to Calabar, of course, during this era of slave trade and palm oil trade, of course, during that particular region, the old Calabar. Right. So during this period, we had these wealthy middlemen that had the direct interface with the colonialists and would allow the colonialists to have direct access now to the ethnic population. So because of their relationship with the colonialists at the time, they started, of course, let me say, embracing the culture of the colonialists by, for example, sending their children out to Liverpool to school, among other places, of course, and also very interested in the houses of the so-called colonial masters at the time. So Egbo Egbo Bassey, Chief Egbo Egbo Bassey, excuse me, was one of the leading then trading middlemen, and he had a good relationship with these traders and colonialists at the time. And the house was put together there in the UK, and then shipped to the old Calabar, and was constructed according to archival records between 1883 and 1886.
Okay.
Right. So then finally, in 1959, it became a national monument. Although the discussion to acquire this building as a national monument, of course, started way before 1959. But finally, on the 14th of August, 1959, it was declared a national monument. But back then, it used to be called historic monument, right?
Yeah.
And then the department was also not called the National Commission for Museum and Monuments. It was called the Department of Antiquity during the colonial.
All right, amazing, amazing. You know, you've mentioned a lot of background, which I think is very important for those people, a lot of people watching us right now. But let's talk about the partnership, the funding of this project. I know it doesn't come, easy, and there's so many people that are part of this vision itself. Put us to speed. Let us know, how has this project been funded? I know you want to talk about that.
Oh yes, absolutely. I like to take every opportunity I have, of course, to thank so much GERDA HENKEL Foundation, which is this very generous organization that's responsible for funding of similar projects.
Okay.
So this specific project that we have ongoing right now is not the only project they are funding in Nigeria or elsewhere around the world.
Okay.
Right? So it's a leading organization when it comes to, of course, funding of this type of projects, especially in regions of the world where maybe there's no sufficient capacity on the part of the state to be able to undertake this sort of project on their own. And in this case, the Egbo Egbo Bassey House, I think, is a particularly very, very significant and very unique architectural heritage of Nigeria. Its value is not only limited to the Nigerian experience, but also it has international significance because it's one of those buildings that were built during a very important period in architectural history, right? When construction transitioned from the traditional approach of in-situ fabrication, that is, you build your house on site, to development of prefabricated houses, excuse me, right? Where you put you assemble a building together off-site, then take it elsewhere to construct it. So it's a very let me say, important period. And this dates back, according to literature, to 1624, right, at least in the UK. Right, so Egbo Egbo Bassey is a testament to this particular period in architectural development. And besides that, Egbo Egbo Bassey is also significant from the point of view of the Baroque architectural movement also. It was also built towards the end of the Baroque movement. So you can see this house, you see elements, of course, of Baroque architectural principle, at a period when the assumption was that rationality, balance, and proportion is a vehicle through which one can assess the realities of the world. And this is also reflected on this building. It's a very, let me say, perfectionist, but like if you like, kind of building where what's on the left is on the right, what is in the back is on the front. And the support system, the structural system, is also very modular, right? So there is, let me say, regular spacing of the structural element also. So you can see that the significance of this house is not only limited to the colonial, let me say, era within the Nigerian experience. But when we are talking about international architectural history, this building is one of those significant, let me say, testament to those international movements.
Well, amazing, good job. Of course, we should say kudos to the sponsor, GERDA HENKEL Foundation, for making sure that they're part of this particular project. But let's look at coming back to Nigeria, coming back to Africa now. The level, the standard of our architectural process or procedures in terms of building our own buildings, getting our constructions and our buildings effectively. Will you say we are developing in Africa, in Nigeria, seeing what we used to have? I know one of the things that most people have called out, talked about, is our maintenance culture. Do we have that? And how do we, if we don't, anyway, how do we develop effectively?
That's a very complex question you asked, Mr. Yobani. But I like to put your question in context.
Yeah.
In the context of now the projects that we're speaking about, especially, I like to pick on the one maintenance culture.
Okay.
Right. It's a shame and it's quite unfortunate that the building is allowed to degenerate to the point in which it is today, even despite the fact that it was acquired by the Commission since 1959. And one would expect certain level of responsibility on both sides, right? Not only on the part of the Commission, but also on the part of the owners, the natural owners, that is the Egbo family themselves. I am not here to apportion blames. I'm only just saying I think we should be doing better. I think we should do better. I know the Commission is really striving. I mean, the fact that we had that kind of collaboration in 2023 It's also a testament to the effort on the part of at least, let me say, the current structure, the current hierarchy of this institution, and their constant drive at looking at what can be done, you know, to undo, let me say, some of the past, some of the past issues that have been associated with the maintenance culture of our national monuments. I think the current hierarchy, they are working day and night, you know, fostering partnership with as many organizations like ours, for example, to see how, you know, we can ensure that most of these national monuments, you know, have been taken care of, have been revived, and of course brought to speed to tap into the potentials, you know, that these national monuments can have. So finally, to wrap up, so in Africa, I think, yes, the most important thing in my own opinion is the awareness.
Awareness.
You know, and now the awareness is there, right? At the moment, on the part of the commission, on the one hand, on the part of even private individuals, on the part of private families, you know, that own these monuments. Now we're beginning to see the values of this kind of monument, not limited to the Egbo Egbo house, by the way. And now we have the ongoing awareness, and I think this is the most fundamental prerequisite for any sort of change.
Amazing. I think a lot of questions are just coming into my head, but I know there are a lot of projects that you want to tell us about. Yes. But what will be the next move for your organization, for your funders? And I'm talking about vernacular heritage initiative now, and of course for the funders. What is the next move? What are we expecting?
Oh yes. Thank you very much. This is quite a very interesting question, and for giving me the opportunity to also talk about this. Like I mentioned, we're officially close to the project, officially now this March. And the foundation, GERDA HENKEL Foundation, generously has also supported us to engage in the next phase of the project, which is the emergency stabilization. I wouldn't like to put too much emphasis on the word emergency, but the stabilization and the seal-up of this particular building. As you could see in the 3D photogrammetry scan, we are not very sure the building is even going to make it to December this year. That's how especially that's about it is, especially also based on our own structural audit report, because we went with engineers, structural engineers and so forth during our documentation process. And we also documented the process of decay from when we visited the site the first time in March, in August when we were back, in October, and finally January this year. And you could see accelerated level of deterioration. As a matter of fact, I am happy to say on national TV like this that the building probably could have collapsed if not for the emergency stabilization that the funder supported us to put on that building. So when we started the building in March, the funder insisted that for two reasons. One, for safety of the project team, this building needs to be stabilized such that the building does not even collapse on them. That's for one. Then secondly, to also keep the building alive at least to the end of the timeline of your projects, right? So for this reason, we did a very good, let me say, preliminary assessment of the structural integrity of this particular building, and our engineers advised on where we should put our stabilization effort, which was on the southern part of the building. There was a balcony, right, that was already falling off. And if that balcony had fallen off, it could have taken the entire building along with it, at least the entire first floor. Maybe not too much on the ground floor. It could have taken the entire first floor with it, right? So what we did was to stabilize this balcony and keep it in that exact position so that it doesn't come down and it doesn't deteriorate any further. Then we also went into the building and we stabilized certain aspects of the building. However, on the other hand, the doors, the windows, right, that was not the focus of our stabilization, you know, has disappeared, I must tell you, between March and now. In fact, one of the most significant elements of this building, which is the main entrance door of the first floor, which carries the name of the owner, Egbo Egbo Bassey, Old Calabar, the year the building was built, the door is completely gone. It's completely gone and it's been carted away from site. So now we had this discussion with the funder that as a next step, before we secure the appropriate funding for restoration proper, I think it's important that as an intermediate step, we stabilize this building. On the one hand, to improve the structural integrity, to keep it at least in that same position until we're able to secure funding. And on the other hand, to seal up the building, that is to prevent it from further theft. Because people just walk into this national monument, especially the people living on that street. I'm not trying to point any accusing finger. We don't know who exactly has been doing that. Maybe it's on the street or from somewhere else, we do not know. Right, but what we do know for sure is that elements, let me say, like doors, windows,
Items have been moved
away on a daily basis. So what we intend to do right now is to stabilize and, of course, finally seal up this building using breathable membrane, such that we do not even improve the level of, or accelerate the rate of decay since the building is actually wood. And since March this year, the funder has been able to provide us now with the funding. As a matter of fact, I just came back from Calabar with the project.
Oh, amazing, amazing. Well done.
Because the commission and my organization, Vernacular Heritage Initiative, is contributing the personnel and travel costs, right, to this project. So we were there to see the preliminary assessment, what needs to be done. So I was there to give instruction. Now I'm in the process of now developing a drawing of what needs to be done, which we are going to hand over, of course, to the site engineer. And the process of stabilization will commence with immediate effect. It's a short-term project. Like I said, it's an intermediate step until we are able to secure the funding, which I am trusting. And I'm hoping we will be able to also secure the funding for the final restoration of this building from the same funder.
All right. As we look at final, restoration of this Egbo Egbo Bassey house, are you also looking at the security so that there will not be theft issues around that place again?
Oh yes. That's a very good question also.
Because it's important, I guess.
Absolutely. The point isn't just to restore this building for the sake of it, because it's a national monument and it's decaying, then we just need to restore it for the sake of it. So this was some of the very fundamental questions that we had to answer on the part of the funder who posed these questions to us, that what is the long-term vision for this building? It's not just about, oh, it's a national monument and we need to restore it. So what is going to be the long-term vision used for this building? And then we have the commission, who are by law the custodians of this building, and they wrote a letter to that effect that's going to be converted to a library and a museum. That is, the ground floor is going to be a museum, and the first floor, of course, is going to be a library. So this means it's going to have life as long as there's activity within the building. There's going to be, of course, standby custodian. There's going to be, of course, once it gets restored, then there's going to be a curator of that building as a national monument. So the commission would have to deploy somebody right to Calabar to become the curator of this particular monument. And this curator will be responsible for overseeing the sustainability of this building. And by sustainability, I mean monies that are made from access to the museum, to the library, and so forth and so on. And these monies can be used for future maintenance. And the curator will be responsible for controlling theft, like you mentioned, and so forth and so on in the future.
All right, thank you. It's been a very robust conversation with you this beautiful morning on the morning show right here on LN 24/7. I must say, very congratulations and very good work you've been doing. And of course, thank you so much for being part of this discussion today. Thank you once again. Whenever you come to Nigeria, please, Abuja is here for you. Come over to the station. Let's have a robust conversation with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, everyone, for having me.
All right, we've been having a smooth conversation with Dr. OBAFEMI Olukoya. He is representing Vernacular Heritage Initiative. And of course, he's been talking about the reports and the model of Egbo Egbo Bassey House project here in Nigeria. And it's been amazing what we have in Nigeria. How can we really retain, sustain, and preserve our cultural heritage? That's our focus on this segment of the program. Well, after the break, we'll return to Lagos. Abuja will be joining us. Lagos will be joining the conversation. We have another conversation that you don't want to miss. Stay with us, please.